Thanks, Madhuri. Thank you to the panelists for being here. We've had a few conversations today morning about endowments. And I want to take a step back. Typically we tend to think of endowments as, a different source of funding for institutes to allow them to do beyond, the traditional government funding that they have. Given our, plethora of panelists here, I want to focus this discussion on a couple of different areas. One, thinking of endowments beyond just the funding, thinking of how endowments are actually creating an ecosystem. Second, focusing our endowments on our very topic, on research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And as Mr. Dhariwal said this morning, helping us think and execute on possibilities beyond the future. And third, we tend to get into the trap of looking at these billions of dollars of endowments in the US, that have been built over the 2-3 decades in the past. We don't have 2-3 decades to build and execute our endowments. So to focus on how we think of building our endowments in India to speed up our deep tech innovation. So thank you again to all the panelists. Mr. Shivkumar, let me start with you. From the perspective of the ANRF, given that its very core is how to foster and grow research, innovation throughout our universities, research institutions, what role do you see endowments playing in our deep tech innovation?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Anju. First, I'll say a couple of words about ANRF, Anusandhan National Research Foundation, for folks who may not be familiar. ANRF is a statutory body of the Government of India. It is similar to UIDAI, which did Aadhaar. It has been formed by Act of Parliament in 2023. Think of it as equivalent to a National Science Foundation or DARPA in the United States to fund research and innovation across India, across all stakeholders. We actually have a larger mandate than these organizations in the US because we have a lot more to do and a much shorter time frame. Very different and very important forms of such investments. Of course, endowments can be used for various things, but what I have seen typically whether I have in my experience in the US or in India, endowments can do new game-changing things. Endowments can lever up major academic industry collaborations. Endowment can start new institutions like the Brain Center in IIT Madras and other sorts of places. So there are different things that can be done with endowments which are hard to do for an institution at an early stage or do something completely new, and there is not a immediate funding vehicle for them to do it, right? So I see that endowments can play such an important role, but I feel that going forward with the combination of what government does in terms of our investments, what individual endowment at an institution can do, or virtual endowments across institutions can do, there's a lot more possibilities into the future.
Thank you. Professor Suman, as a director of our oldest and our first IIT Kharagpur, and one of our leading tech institutions, you've often said you see endowments as a game changer, for research and innovation. Would love to hear your thoughts on how you see them, changing the game for us.
Yeah, when we have reached 75 years, IIT Kharagpur, so we have got enough of an experience to realize where we are not good at, and I think this is one of those areas. So because our focus is today on innovation and ecosystem created around that. So we have two different perspectives. One is something which is blue sky, maybe we want to be the world's first to do that, but we do not have the mechanism or a drive which will make us absorb those failures. If we cannot absorb failures, we cannot be world beaters. So that is one end of the spectrum. And the other end is something where we very loosely call as low hanging fruits. These are not actually low hanging, but in a way those can be diverted into certain things in a fast track mode. So I was just thinking, yesterday night, and for the interest of time I have jotted certain points which I will very briefly talk about. So I was thinking of making IIT Kharagpur as the nation's first loss university. That means create endowment as a loss buffer. So that will unlock opportunities for frontier research ideas, which are perhaps the first in the world, but we are uncertain about the success. So someone has to fund that. On the other end of the spectrum, a proof of relevance fund that moves the ideation to prototype, say, within 90 days, and that is also quite possible. So that we can call as proof of scale fund. So the range is different. In terms of human resources, I have always been very happy to see there are many chair professorship positions at different IITs or leading institutions, but we do not see them focused. So they are like top up grants to talented individuals, but I thought that we can have them focused, for an endowment can provide that, like women's health in climate affected regions chair. So very focused, and that will make it mission oriented rather than a general top up. Catch them young, the student centric initiatives, and some of the older IITs where we have large numbers of students, that we can have a separate drive through competitive grants, hackathons, this and that, and make them access these funds in a seamless way. And regarding the funding, you can have the, mostly we imagine it will be alumni donations and gifts per se. So match that with, say, equivalent, if not 1:1, a public capital. So maybe 1:1 like that. So that will give a better budget for some of the deep tech programs. And what IIT Kharagpur can also provide is some open test beds that outsiders can rent, like some rural test beds for health tech, field validation, some intelligent manufacturing, agri hydrology, so many other things where we have the natural test bed and we can rent it out to people and work and that can create a model. So if we focus on all these things, we can have outcome linked endowment. This is very, very important rather than having very generic one. And we can also have tiny capped revenue share from licensed IP, etc., to energize faculty, which requires a bit more energy. And we can have some evergreen translational funds which can be issued within 30 days of expression of interest. And for many of the NRI donors, we have many alumni who are NRIs, we can have a operator in residence, 1:1 model. So you can have a say CTO or a founder embedded in a lab for 6 to 12 months to bridge the lab to market gap. And what I thought is that many of the research items we require data. So data should also be thought as an endowment. It's not just the money, even data access and sharing could also be that. So, and my final remark is that endowment, we always think someone is giving a donation of a chunk of money, but it is also an ecosystem and it is not the chunk of money. Alumni have many multifaceted experiences in life. So setting up ethics and regulatory compliances, some we can have sabbaticals for very talented faculty for their startups, and that can be sort of I would say championed by our own ecosystem. Then we can have pull out common instrumentation and manufacturing facilities, and such a huge institute, we have so many common facilities and we can keep them in a shared user framework. So it's about a policy of how people can make use of it.
Very interesting ideas.
Supply chain, market alliance, and so many other things, community engagement. These are not hard money.
No, very interesting ideas, especially like thinking about the data and thinking specifically.
Thank you. That was my early.
Yeah, very outcome oriented, very interesting ideas. So, Mr. Ashank, coming as an alumni donor, as a corporate leader who's made such an impact in the ecosystem, how do you see corporates playing a role in the whole endowment and innovation space?
Corporate as alums in from corporate,
alums from their CSR. Yes.
Okay, so here are my thoughts. Of course, I agree with Professor Chakraborty that endowment can be larger defined beyond just giving money,
yes.
which is equally important, I can
Absolutely.
tell you, for IITs from where I am involved in terms of doing various things. But focusing on endowment in money, the possibilities from corporate today are two. One, as a corporate leader, you could drive CSR kind of money which is available and that can be given as endowment. So that's one stream of flow. Second is, of course, the personal endowment that you give, or a company also gives endowment. Now, both of these two sources have challenges as well as opportunities. If we are talking of research and innovation as a focus for your endowment, so I am just taking that. Let me give you some statistics, incidentally. Total endowment in US, you know what is this number? $30 billion. Out of the $30 billion of endowments in American universities, believe me, how much goes towards research? It's just 16.7%.
Okay.
49% goes towards student aid, which is required. I'm not saying it is either or, but that's the kind of big chunk goes there. And another 8-9% goes towards faculty positions, which is also a research in a way. But the point I'm making is, getting money for research and through endowment is a difficult piece.
Absolutely.
It's easier to give it to 100 students, salaries paid, because it is measured.
Yes.
There is a measurement lying there. In innovation and research, it gets very difficult to measure the results. And in CSR particularly, when I give money through my Mastek Foundation, I can't give anything unless I have some result to show to government as my annual research.
Yes.
At least in other endowment, you need not give it in that sense. But defining KPIs of research would be extremely important if we want more and more money of endowment coming towards research. That's one issue. I, of course, made a small attempt at my alma mater, and whatever I have given is mostly spent on research.
Okay.
Like at IIM Ahmedabad, we are talking of research on leadership, and IIT Bombay, quite a bit of money is towards building think tanks in public policy and so on. But the point I'm making is, that's a difficult piece to give because one does not know the exact outcome as a measurement.
Absolutely.
Whereas if I give it to 10,000 students, I know everybody,
how many?
Those results
Fair
I can
point.
see.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge one has to think through. Money is available, but making it available for IITs specifically that we are talking of IITs, effort will have to be made to quantified outcomes.
Absolutely.
Is one issue. Second is, of course, regulatory. There are a lot of challenges also.
Yes.
I'll not get into all the details here. Your time is ticking, I know. So I would not spend too much time. But there are regulatory challenges today again for the same reasons of measurement and outcomes.
Yeah.
But we should spend. The point I'm making is we are behind in every aspect in IITs.
Yeah.
Even IIT, our best of the institutes are
And
not
it's
in
a question,
top 100,
Yeah.
which is not on.
Which is not. Absolutely.
Our neighbor has 40 or 50 institutions in top 100.
Absolutely.
That's not on. Where we were at a different level if that ranking was done 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But
No,
now,
and absolutely. I think
so
creating.
I think money is needed actually for endowment.
Yes.
If you ask me, the need is highest
Yeah.
in our country, in our IITs.
No, and I think what you're saying about creating these transparent outcomes is also going to encourage more alumni, even beyond just the corporates to do it. I think that's one thing that really needs to improve.
Yeah.
Mr. Sharaf, coming to you, looking at it from a pan IIT perspective, how can the global kind of IIT alumni across all the IITs, really contribute to making these endowments more successful? And a second part I'll tag on to it. Why aren't we seeing more interest from across the IITs to really drive the creation of endowments?
Firstly,
It's working.
the first point is endowment is agnostic of alumni. They are mutually exclusive to each other. But having said that, all the alumni have an emotional connect with the institution where they studied, where they spent 4 or 5 years of their prime time of their lives. So they are attached, they do feel like giving back. All the alumni also know that the government has spent a huge amount of money in teaching them. In fact, we made a study in IIT Bombay and found that our fees cover only about 8% of the expenses that the institute incurs. So there is still 92% expenses coming from somewhere else somehow. So every alumni feels an obligation to pay back to the alumni.
Yeah.
Having said that, why we have not been able to build up an endowment? That is a question.
Yeah.
Main reason is there is a urgent need for funds for the ongoing projects. For example, I can say from my experience in IIT Bombay, the institute is 70 years old. It requires to be almost to be rebuilt. So as soon as we get any funding, any donation, it is already earmarked for something. And most of the donations come with earmarking. That like my friend Ashank has said, has given a donation and they have set up the Center for Policy Studies. My own company gave a donation and set up a Center for Artificial Intelligence.
Yeah.
So like this, they are giving money which are earmarked for something.
Yeah.
So it becomes difficult at the moment to have some cash for building up endowment. But I will come to this later during the discussions that how in spite of all this an endowment can be built. And I think need for endowment is already covered.
Absolutely.
So there are a lot of things that
Yeah.
can be said about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So
there's no need to repeat.
Okay. So, Mr. Shivkumar, you know, from a policy perspective, coming in from the government perspective, what policies need to be changed, enhanced to really focus our endowments more towards research, innovation, and entrepreneurship? Because a lot of these US endowments, they're treated as funds, they can be invested. I think there are some restrictions on how institute endowments here work. How can the government policies support more of these endowments being used effectively for research and innovation?
Yeah, look, I think the policy from a CSR perspective does allow donations, philanthropy to come into endowments. Now, I think it is a, see, when I'm in government, I don't want to over dictate the decision of the boards on how they would like to further invest their philanthropic money or the CSR money. Similarly, for individuals, how they will allocate philanthropic. So we are a bit cautious on how to govern that from a policy perspective. So clearly, there's a space to invest. So at least my organization has been set up to validate that area to show that we can co-invest in certain areas, or we can catalyze different models of investment, particularly in research and innovation. But clearly, if there are some big challenges that are huge blockers, we'd be very keen to learn. I echo some of the sentiments here about endowments having or endowments or any philanthropic contributions to research and innovations having measurement issues, accountability issues. I think if there are structures that can bring that solutions to that, that would be very helpful. Because end of the day, like you've said earlier, there is a lot of appetite to give. But either if it is earmarked is one way of giving that. If it is not earmarked and it goes into a general pool of endowment, how it is governed, at least as autonomous institutions, IITs have a lot of flexibility in how they can set things up. So yeah, I'm not too familiar with the exact challenges in those areas, but I'd be very happy to be educated.
Yeah. So Ashank, back to you. You're talking about the corporates and alumni and outcomes. What are the typical outcomes, or what ones would you suggest that can be set into place to give more of these endowments specifically for research and innovation? How do we structure those outcomes?
Okay. So I think one way, these are my first level thoughts. I didn't know you are going to ask me this question, so I didn't think about it. No, but on a serious note, see today, what is the area for the rankings of our institutions at a global level, one of the very important part is research ranking.
Yes.
And that is the area where we get a lower marks, if you ask me. In terms of teaching, in terms of increase in salaries after graduate, there are a lot of things. We do very well. IITs, I'm talking now, IIMs. So, one way of measurement is that wherever we give money, institutes should look at how we could increase that ranking. I'm not saying endowment money is only money available for research. Government gives a lot of money too. But the point I'm making, that is one way of measurement. Number two more is immediate rankings that all of them have, Google rankings and number of research papers published, number of patents published, patents filed. That is another way of looking at research endowment. So if somebody gives us that, us as in corporates or the donors, we will feel comfortable that my money is generating 10 patents a year or 100 research citations per year, or so those measurements are available in research. I would be comfortable as a person, for example, if we have such measurements. So that is what I would suggest in a very briefly. One more data, one I must tell you. You know how much is endowment as a percentage of revenue in American universities?
No.
Guess. I am found of lot of data, that's why I did some research. It's around 15%.
Wow.
Which is not, it's a big money.
It is a lot of money.
I don't know IITs how much it is. It may be 3-4% probably, I am guessing offhand. Even less. So one way of measuring the success is to reach that level, I'm saying. That is another measurement for institutions to see how we can move up to that level. That endowment moves to 14-15%. And most of it is, by the way, today even American universities are financing it for the education part, as I told you. 48% is going in fees part of it.
Scholarships.
Because it's not covering their total costs. But anyway, coming back to the measurements, I'm saying that it's possible to do measurements.
So, Mr. Sharaf, I mean, just continuing on a couple of points you were making. Again, how do we think of endowments and how can we leverage them beyond the money to actually create ecosystems to have the execution, deployment, outcomes of these endowments, more meaningful?
See, the issue of deployment and use of endowment will come only after you have the endowment. The problem is at the moment we don't have it. So first step is to create an endowment. So my suggestion for many years to several IIT Bombay directors and others has been that we should make it a policy that 10% of all or 15% of all donations that come in should go to the endowment. Endowment is like a reserve of a company, or a corpus of an NGO. Therefore, for an educational institute, endowment is absolutely necessary. It is a money that comes in handy in times of need, because like the previous in the panel they mentioned they had cash for 15 days or cash for 1 month. It's at times our disbursement of money from government or from HEFA loan that we have doesn't come on time, and at that point of time we have to dip into endowment. So therefore we have to build up an endowment, and if all the donations come earmarked, then never ever we will have endowment. Because IIT Bombay today has ongoing projects for about 2,000 crores. So till they get 2,000 crores, there will be another 2,000 crores coming up, and so on, and you will never have an endowment. So if you want to have an endowment, then you have to make a policy that 10 or 15% of what we get will go to form the endowment. Then only it will get formed.
Fair enough. So I'm conscious of the time we're running short. So let me ask all the panelists kind of one common question. There's this, BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals. So I'll start with you, Professor Suman. What is your BHAG for the impact that endowments can have over the next kind of 5 years?
I would say tremendous. In fact, when we started discussing with Vikram at a time, it was far behind, my joining as a director. I was a dean at that time. And what we clearly pointed out is that endowment is something which is this reserve that sir was talking
But what is
about.
the goal? One
No, goal is,
yeah.
I have 5 institutional goals if I say. So if you say IIT Kharagpur, 1500 crore endowment.
Okay.
So I have 5 broad things. So we cannot say we will become great in 100 things. So world class research and innovation hubs, a few we will create. Future ready education and human capital.
Okay.
Healthcare and societal well-being, sustainable campus and infrastructure excellence, and global leadership and alumni engagement. 5
Amazing.
areas clearly distributed, and we can have a governance. I think governance is a very important thing, and what was being discussed also, that how to generate endowment even if you do not have per se direct endowment. So we have something which is called as overhead in IIT system. Any project has overhead. So if we have a private funded project, I think we can divert a part of overhead for the endowment. So independent investments and outcome, all these can be managed by a board with some quarterly outcome, and we can have signature commitments to donors. This is something which we do not do, and therefore donors lack interest. So 90-day money to motion.
Okay.
So whatever they give, I think that has to be translated to action. That is what I can say.
Okay. Mr. Shivkumar, same question for you. What is the big goal in the next 5 years you want endowments to accomplish?
No. Since I come from the government and I would like to see this overall in the country, I'll leave you with a 1 lakh crore number.
Okay. Mr. 1 lakh crore. Ashank?
One goal I already said, 15% of your
Okay.
income should come. But second, what I'm saying is more outcome rather than just money is, I would like to see IITs, all the IITs of our, at least top 5 IITs, because they are ahead from time perspective, should be in top 50 in research ranking globally. That should be the goal of our endowment.
Okay.
So get as much money as you can for endowment to make that happen.
Nice. Mr. Sharaf?
Yeah, as Ashank said, at least the top 5 IITs should have a sizable endowment that would make a difference. We are talking of using endowment funds, but I would say we need to use the interest money generated or what the endowment earns in the research projects or in funding the students, giving scholarships, infrastructure and so on. If you keep using the endowment funds, very soon you'll run out of endowment.
Absolutely.
So therefore, we first step is to build up endowment, create at least, let's say for 5 IITs, 1,000 crores each to start with, and then that can go up. So that should be the goal.
Great. Thank you so much. We can keep going on, but unfortunately there's that red ringer. But thank you all so much for your time and for a great discussion.